After being away on a 3-month business trip, I came home to find that my boyfriend had a new dinner companion. She looked even more like the lady of the house than I did, moving busily around the kitchen, skillfully preparing multiple dishes. Just as they were about to sit down to eat, she held up the matching couple's bowl set, the ones Mason and I used to share. She had the audacity to stick out her tongue at me and said, "Oops, I forgot. There's only one set of bowls and chopsticks in the house. Nalani let me get you a bowl for your rice." Right in front of Mason, she served me a bowl of rice using a disposable plastic bowl. Mason didn't say a word. At that moment, I knew it was time to break up with him. After months away, my company's overseas operations had finally stabilized. I secretly bought a plane ticket and came back a day before Mason's birthday, hoping to surprise him. On the way back, I imagined all kinds of reactions he might have. How shocked and happy he'd be when he saw me and the birthday gift I had carefully chosen for him. His face would definitely be priceless. To capture that moment, I even brought a tiny camera just so I could record it and keep the memory. I thought everything would go smoothly, but I ran into trouble the moment I reached door 708. That's it. I took 2 steps back and double-checked the number on the door. My mind went blank. Why did the electronic lock say the incorrect password both times? I clearly remembered the code. It was my birthday. There was no way I got it wrong. Unconvinced, I slowly and carefully entered my birthday again slowly, 1 digit at a time. But after the final number, the lock clicked and showed locked, unable to unlock. That could only mean one thing. Mason had changed the passcode. I sighed and gave into reality, pressing the doorbell. After the second ring, a sweet, perky female voice came from inside. "Just leave the package at the door." I froze for a second. I stepped back again to look at the condo unit number, still 708. No mistake. So why was there a woman's voice inside my home? An uneasy feeling started rising in my chest. I pressed the doorbell again. I said, "Leave the package at the door. Don't you understand English?" The voice barked, clearly irritated. The door suddenly swung open. A petite girl with a low-side ponytail stood there wearing a linen apron and holding a spatula. She glared at me, visibly annoyed, but the moment she saw my face, her expression shifted. Still, her tone stayed sharp. "Who are you looking for?" I didn't answer. I simply pushed my suitcase forward and walked past her into the condo. "Hey, what do you think you're doing? You can't just barge into someone's home. I'll call the police," she shouted, grabbing my arm. I glanced around at the familiar furnishings, then slowly let my eyes fall back on her. I frowned and said, "Shouldn't I be the one asking that? Who are you? Why are you in my home? Where's Mason?" Just as she and I were locked in a standoff, Mason's voice came from outside the door. "Hey babe, I got the coconut water, the brand you like." He was taking off his shoes in the entryway. I had to run around to several stores to find it. "You better thank me later. I'm expecting a good leg massage." He called out a couple more times but got no response. When he looked up, his eyes met mine, and in that moment the color drained from his face. "Nalani, you're back." He stammered. He quickly rushed over to me. The girl, Helga, paused for a second, then didn't bother arguing with me anymore. She walked up to Mason casually, took the drink from his hand, and placed it on the table as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Mason hurried over to me and pulled me into a tight hug, his eyes filled with excitement. "You came back early. Why didn't you tell me? I could have picked you up at the airport." He held me tightly, but I had no desire to hug him back. All I could feel was how unfamiliar this man felt. The man who had been my boyfriend for 5 years. Who was he? I've never been the kind to beat around the bush. Whatever I'm thinking, I just say it. I looked at him directly and asked, "Who the fuck is she?" Mason gave me a helpless look. "Did you forget I told you about Helga? She's the one I found in our complex to do home-cooked meal service." I frowned, trying to recall. After a while, I vaguely remembered he had mentioned something about her before Mason worked as a gaming streamer. So his meals were often irregular, and since I had to be away on a long business trip, I was worried about his health. He used to order takeout, usually healthy options like salads and simple home-style dishes. But Mason grew tired of those after a week. Then he found someone in the neighborhood who offered a home-style meal service, 3 meals a day for $1,500 a month. Clean, hygienic, and homemade. When he told me about it, I was all for it. I told him to go for the best meal plan. Yes, he really had told me about her. I just hadn't expected that the service now included cooking meals inside our home. It wasn't like that, Mason said quickly, seeing my face turn dark. But later, there weren't many clients left using the service. Eventually, I was the only one, so the cook just started coming over to make meals here. As he explained, Helga walked over carrying a dish she just finished and placed it on the table. She wiped her hands on her apron and smiled. "That's right, Nalani. You should try my cooking." "Yeah, come have a taste," Mason added. "Helga's cooking is really something else. It's amazing." He excitedly pulled out a chair for me to sit down. The moment I sat down, I heard Helga say to Mason, "Don't just sit there. Get her some coconut water." "Oh, right." Mason seemed to snap back to attention and rushed off to get a cup for me. He picked up a pink cup from the table, but Helga immediately snapped, "Idiot, don't use that one. That's mine." Mason finally realized and awkwardly set the cup down, then went to look for another. When he couldn't find one, Helga chuckled and called him a dumb goose, then grabbed a clean glass from the nearby cabinet and handed it to him. Mason scratched his head sheepishly. The two of them, one serving the food, the other pouring me coconut water, moved in sync. I sat alone at the table quietly watching them, their effortless coordination and closeness. For a moment, it felt like they were the loving couple of this home and I was just a guest. It wasn't until Mason placed a glass of coconut water in front of me and reached out to pat my hand affectionately that I snapped out of it. "What's wrong, babe?" he said with a smile. It wasn't until he called me babe that I remembered, oh right, Mason was my boyfriend. We were the couple in this house. I was supposed to be the one sharing this space with him. Just as I lifted my eyes to speak to Mason, a sharp crash came from the kitchen, the sound of a bowl shattering, followed by Helga's startled yelp. I didn't get the chance to say a word before Mason, clearly alarmed, rushed straight to the kitchen. I didn't look toward the kitchen, but I could hear their voices clearly. "Ouch!" "You're so clumsy. Don't touch that. Let me do it. You might cut yourself," Mason said nervously. "That plate was just too slippery," Helga replied, sounding apologetic. "It's okay. It's just a bowl. As long as you're not hurt, it doesn't matter," Mason reassured her. Their voices gradually faded as if they were whispering to each other. I closed my eyes. I couldn't make out what they were saying, and I didn't want to. Soon after, they came out of the kitchen, each holding a bowl of rice. One bowl had a little puppy design, the other had a kitten. Mason placed the one with the puppy design in front of himself. The other bowl was placed in front of Helga. The two of them sat down so naturally as if they'd done it 100 times before. Then Helga suddenly seemed to remember something, covering her mouth with a playful expression. "Oh no, I forgot. There are only 2 bowls at home." "Nalani, let me get you another one." With that, she hurried back into the kitchen. Moments later, she came back with a bowl of rice served in a disposable bowl. She placed it in front of me, her face full of apologies. I stared at her quietly, and when she sat down again, I couldn't help but curl my lips into a mocking smirk. Mason, on the other hand, was completely oblivious to the tension. He didn't even notice the plastic bowl in front of me. Instead, he eagerly picked up his own bowl and started eating, grabbing a chicken wing right away. "It's so good, you've got to try it, Nalani," he said between bites. "Yeah," Helga added, with a half smile, half sneer. "Just make yourself at home, Nalani. No need to be polite." I let out a soft, bitter laugh, not because of her, but because of Mason. What made it worse was that Mason didn't react at all. He didn't even find it odd that Helga was speaking as if she were the lady of the house. It was like deep down he believed she had the right to say those things. That realization crushed me. Just then, Helga let out a little yelp and smacked her forehead. "I forgot to take off my apron!" She untied it, and the moment the apron came off, my heart skipped a beat and my brain went blank. Because underneath the apron, Helga was only wearing a long, thin, nearly see-through white shirt. So thin that the moment I looked up I could see everything. I felt stunned and frozen. Then Helga shot me a provocative look and called over to Mason, "Hey, silly goose, get me another chicken wing. It's too far, I can't reach." "Sure," Mason replied immediately, jumping up like it was second nature. At that moment, I couldn't even describe how I felt. All I knew was if I kept swallowing this any longer, I'd end up being That kind of woman everyone laughs at behind her back. The kind who's been cheated on, humiliated, and still pretends everything is fine. So just as Mason picked up the chicken wing and was about to hand it to Helga, I stood up. In one furious motion, I swept the entire table of dishes onto the floor. The plates crashed. Hot food and oily sauces splashed everywhere. Some even landed on Helga. She let out a sharp scream. Her eyes welled with tears as she trembled. "Nilani, I don't know what you're so angry about, but no matter how upset you are, you shouldn't take it out on the food." "Nilani!" Mason yelled. Now clearly pissed, he slammed his fork on the table. "What the hell is wrong with you?" "You walk in with a nasty attitude and now you're throwing food everywhere. Apologize to Helga." I laughed out of pure disbelief. "You want me to apologize?" "Yes!" Mason snapped. His tone was firm and commanding, like he didn't think I had no right to be upset. The next second, I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. Helga screamed again. I didn't stop. I grabbed Mason by the ear, yanked him toward her, and shoved him down next to her. "Apologize? Fine, but maybe you should explain something first." Before either of them could react, I slapped Helga, then reached out and yanked her shirt down, revealing a large stretch of her pale skin. "Before I apologize, don't you think you owe me an explanation? Like, why is she cooking in my home for my boyfriend without wearing a bra and a see-through shirt?" Mason stared at the scene before him. His face instantly drained of all color. "She's not. She couldn't be." He stammered, but then he looked again, and the moment his eyes clearly registered what was in front of him, he swallowed hard. In the next moment, as he realized what he had just done, Mason immediately looked up at me. But when his eyes met mine, he finally panicked. He scrambled to explain, stammering, "No, babe, listen to me. I don't know why she wasn't wearing underwear. She's just the one cooking, and I'm just the one eating." Helga had been flustered trying to cover her chest, but the moment she heard Mason trying to distance himself from her, she suddenly froze. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at Mason completely shocked. But Mason avoided her gaze. Instead, he kept clinging to my hand, trying to explain, "Babe, it's nothing between me and her. We're just friends." "Is that so? A man and a woman alone in a house while she's wearing nothing but a thin sheer shirt and no bra underneath, and you expect me to believe that's just friendship?" I slapped him again. Without saying a word, Mason really started to panic. "We've been together for about 5 years. If you don't know her, at least you know me, right? I'm the guy who doesn't even get recommended suggestive videos on social media. I swear I'm innocent. I seriously don't know why she wasn't wearing anything underneath." He looked like he was about to swear an oath to the heavens to prove he was innocent. I wasn't going to argue with him anymore. Instead, I turned my gaze toward Helga, the same chick who had been provoking me from the moment I walked in, acting like the queen of my home. She was clutching her clothes tightly, eyes wide in terror, trying to play the poor, mistreated victim. Gritting her teeth, she finally shouted, her voice choked, "Nilani, I don't need to explain anything. If we're clean, we're clean. People with dirty minds see filth in everything." She emphasized that last sentence with a sharp edge dripping in passive-aggressive provocation. I shot right back. "Oh, really? So what you're saying is I'm the one who took off your bra? Or was it me who helped you pick out that barely there see-through shirt? Did I force you to come into my home and cook for my boyfriend dressed like that?" I stepped closer and looked down at her coldly. "By your logic, if I walk in next time and find the two of you naked in bed, are you going to tell me I'm the twisted one? That you were just lying there having a conversation?" Helga was at a loss for words. Her entire face looked pale and flushed with embarrassment. She clearly hadn't expected me to be so blunt, to drag her petty little tricks into the light like this. She bit her lip and instinctively turned to Mason, hoping he'd step in for her, but the second Mason met her eyes, he quickly looked away. Furious Helga clenched her fists and glared at me. "I can tell you I never did anything with Mason. I'm not as filthy as you think." Her voice shook as she shouted, "I wore that shirt because I have a special condition. My skin reacts to fabric. It gets itchy and red. I need breathable clothes to avoid irritation. That's all." She was trembling all over. "I just revealed my personal medical condition to you. Are you happy now?" With that, she turned around and stormed out of the condo, slamming the door behind her. Mason stood there frozen, staring after her for a long moment. Then, almost like he just figured something out, he muttered, "So she's sick?" I looked up at him in disbelief. Mason furrowed his brows and looked straight at me as if he were the one who'd been wronged. Nalani, why do you always have to take things so far? She's already going through enough. Did you really have to hit us? Don't you feel even a little guilty? Guilty? I didn't know if my rage caused my head to throb. When I looked into Mason's eyes, I was shaking with fury. And then just to make it worse, he added, "We should probably go and apologize to her later." That was it. All the strength drained from my body. I silently reached for the bowl of rice still sitting on the table. Mason frowned slightly and opened his mouth like he was about to say something else, but before he could speak, I hurled the entire bowl of rice straight into his face. "Mason, we're done," I said calmly. "Being with you has been nothing but a stain on my life." "You're crazy, Nalani," he shouted, more aggrieved than me. "I don't agree with this. Did you take something today?" Mason snapped. "You come home and just start making a scene, turning the whole house upside down. Wait, could it be—" He suddenly narrowed his eyes, scanning me from head to toe. "You're not seeing someone else out there, are you? And now you're just looking for an excuse to blame me and force a breakup." His eyes widened in shock, as if he just uncovered some brilliant master plan. He stared intently at my face, searching for signs of guilt. And when he saw my expression twitch in disbelief, it only seemed to confirm his theory. "I knew it! You were seeing someone else!" Mason shouted like it was the revelation of the century. His voice was so loud it echoed. "Nalani, how could you do this to me?" At that moment, I honestly couldn't tell if Mason had completely lost his mind. In just one sentence, he managed to pull off the classic trifecta of deflection, change the subject, reverse the blame, and twist the narrative. We had been talking about him and Helga. He hadn't offered any explanation or defense, just suddenly, "I must be cheating." Clearly, he was trying to blur the lines around his inappropriate behavior with Helga and shift the blame onto me. I looked at the man standing in front of me, the man I had dated for nearly 5 years. Mason stiffened under my gaze. He looked uncomfortable, even nervous. "Why are you staring at me like that?" he asked dryly. "You're the one who did something shady, not me. I didn't do anything." "Are you sure?" I asked calmly. "Then how about this? Are you willing to switch phones and check each other's messages?" Mason flinched. My voice was flat and emotionless, but it clearly struck a nerve. His eyes darted to the bowl I had thrown at him earlier. Mason's face looked panicked. From the moment I walked through the door, Helga had already thrown all the evidence in my face. The matching bowls and water cups, the overly familiar nicknames and body language, there, traces of her presence scattered all around my home. All of it tells me one thing: my space has been invaded and violated. At this point, whether or not you physically cheated doesn't even matter. He stood there silent. "You changed the lock code?" Mason froze, clearly caught off guard. It took him a while to remember. "Oh yeah, Helga kept forgetting the passcode when she came to cook. I'd be live streaming in the gaming room with my headset on so I couldn't hear the door. Sometimes she'd be stuck outside for over an hour, so I changed it to something easier for her to remember. It's 990817. Now I stood there, silently, repeating the numbers in my head, 990817. I didn't even need to think twice. I guessed it was Helga's birthday. I had thought I was calm, but the wave of fury that surged inside me. I thought I was done being angry about all this mess. But the moment Mason said that, a wave of fury shot through my chest. I was so livid I raised my arm ready to slap him across the face again, with all the force I had. Mason flinched, his whole body tensed up, and he immediately shut his eyes tight, bracing for impact. The pain he expected didn't come. He couldn't help but crack one eye open to peek and saw my hand slowly lower in front of his cheek. Relieved. Mason visibly relaxed. Then I delivered a second, well-aimed slap that landed hard on his face. "Mason," I said coldly, looking him dead in the eye, "this is my house. I paid for it in full. You have no right to make any changes to it, including changing the door code." He clutched his face in pain and opened his mouth like he wanted to explain something, but no words came out. He struggled for a few seconds, then gave up entirely. I said nothing else and walked over to the pink cup Helga had left on the table and picked it up. Then I glanced at the blue cup in the corner. I held them up, stared at it for a second, then let it fall from my hand. They smashed to pieces on the floor. "Oops," I said slowly. Guess I didn't hold it steady. I looked around the living room. The decor felt foreign and unrecognizable, completely different from what I remembered. Ugly pink curtains, pastel sofa covers, bunny-shaped pillows, and a knitted throw blanket with a giant goose embroidered on it. Right next to the goose, I saw Mason's name stitched in the cedarwood TV cabinet I had specifically chosen. It had been painted over in a cheap cream-colored paint. The sight of that tacky shade made me feel like I couldn't breathe. I stormed into the bedroom. The moment I saw the unfamiliar bedding, I let out a scornful laugh. Mason trailed him behind me. When he heard my laugh and followed my gaze to the bed, his face flushed a deep red. "It's not what you think," he said quickly. "That's from that one time I got drunk after an argument, remember? I puked all over the old set and felt bad about it, so Helga insisted on buying a new one. I just never got around to changing it. If you don't like it, I'll order a new one right now." He was babbling like a fool. He pulled out his phone and started tapping, trying to place an order. I took a few photos of the bedroom. I stopped him. "Hold on," I said calmly. "I need to get a lawyer and a financial advisor to come estimate the total damages to my property." Mason froze, phone still in his hand. He looked up at me, stunned. "What do you mean?" I furrowed my brows and stared at him. "What's so hard to understand? Did you really think you and Helga could turn my home into this circus and then get away with it?" I left him standing there in shock and went to check the rest of my house. My two friends showed up and got to work immediately. In just over an hour, using my past receipts and descriptions of the home, they calculated the estimated damages. The total was $314,000. I laid everything out in front of Mason along with the photos I took. The biggest items are the custom kitchen cabinets that had been wallpapered over, the fridge and cabinets in the living room, the TV stand and the decorative tile in the bathroom, the balcony that had tiles overlaid on the concrete. All of it was repainted or modified without my permission. I'm going to have to replace it all. And then there's the collection in the study. I've curated limited edition books for years. I've heard enough. Mason cut in. He stared at me like I was insane. Helga asked for permission before changing anything. I agreed to it. His eyes flicked to my two friends, then back to me. He pressed his lips together. "You don't need to blow this all out of proportion. I'll just have her come over and apologize, and we'll settle it that way." He started to type a message to Helga, but I knocked on the table to get his attention. "You're mistaken." I said, "It's not just her who's paying." I pointed at the invoice on the table where both names were clearly printed. "Helga and Mason, you're both responsible. You're paying together." Mason was clearly stunned. He stared at me in disbelief and shouted, "Nalani, I'm your boyfriend. How could you be so heartless? Just because I got a little close with another girl, you're treating me like this." Without a word, I grabbed the extra glass of cold water on the table and threw it right into his face. "If you don't understand plain English, go to a hospital and get your ears checked," I snapped. Then I raised my voice. "We already broke up. Don't try to frame this as some emotional drama between a man and a woman. You teamed up with someone else and caused serious damage to my property. If you refuse to compensate me, I'll see you at the police station, then in court." Mason's face instantly darkened. He shouted my name in utter disbelief. "Nalani." I didn't argue. I picked up my phone and dialed the police. Just as the call went through, Mason lunged forward and hung it up. Okay, he roared, trembling with rage. "You really want to make a scene, don't you? Fine, let's break up, but don't come crying to me later." I let out a long breath. My head throbbed. As Mason angrily dragged his suitcase toward the door, I called after him. He paused, turned back with a smug smile, and said, "What? Regretting already? Can't let me go?" I looked at him like he was completely delusional. "No, fool. I just want Helga's contact info before you leave. Neither of you are getting out of this. I need to send her the damages list." Mason's smug smile instantly dropped. He handed me Helga's contact information and left without looking back. As soon as I shut the door, I heard a loud, pathetic sob from outside the door. It had nothing to do with me anymore. Right now, I only cared about getting compensated and restoring my home. I created a group chat with both Mason and Helga on WhatsApp. The group's name was Run Me My Money. Mason was the first to react, sending a message that said, "Love Nest Family." I rolled my eyes when I saw it and didn't even bother replying. Thankfully, he deleted the message a second later. I tagged both Mason and Helga and sent them the full list of damages followed by one simple message. Please transfer the compensation amount to me within 10 days or charges will be filed. Then I muted the group notifications. How they split the amount or who pays what was none of my concern. I spent the entire day clearing out all the tacky junk they'd added to my house. With all that pastel frilly nonsense gone, my place finally started to feel like mine again. Early the next morning, I replaced the door lock and installed security cameras at both the entrance and inside the house. On the third day, I hired a cleaning crew to give the place a full deep clean. While they were tidying the bedroom, one of the cleaners found a pair of pink lace panties under the bed. They asked if I wanted to keep them. I was disgusted and almost told them to throw it away on the spot, but then I paused. "Wait," I said. I took a photo of the underwear and sent it to the group chat. I tagged Helga. "Hi, excuse me, is this yours?" Helga couldn't hold back anymore. She jumped in with a voice message. "Yes, it's mine. So what Mason bought that from me? Jealous much, you old hag?" I raised my eyebrows and calmly replied, "That's fine, I found them under my bed. Since the two of you slept in my bed, I no longer want it. I'll be adding the mattress and the solid wood frame to the compensation list. Total $6,000. The group chat went silent for a full minute. Then Helga spammed it with over a dozen 60-second voice messages. I smirked. I didn't listen to a single one. Instead, I posted a screenshot of the legal documents my lawyer friend had prepared. Helga, who just moments ago was full of fight, instantly went quiet. A long moment passed, then Mason finally replied in the group chat. "Nalani, do you really have to make this ugly?" I sent a reply immediately. Intentional property damage is punishable by 3 to 7 years in prison. Mason fell silent. The group went completely quiet. Not a single message followed until the 8th day. A scruffy-looking Mason showed up at my doorstep with Helga by his side. He instinctively went to punch in the door code. He tried 3 times. Each time the keypad showed incorrect passcode. Only then did it finally dawn on him that the code was changed. He called me. The first thing he said was, "You changed the lock and the passcode too? Your birthday doesn't work." I said, "Neither does our anniversary." Mason's voice was shaking, like he might collapse any second. "Nalani, do you really not love me anymore? We've been together for almost 5 years." I paused for a moment, then replied, "So what you're saying is, I'm entitled to emotional damages too?" The next second, he hung up on me. I pulled up the front door camera on my phone and saw Mason standing there with a devastated expression, staring at my door. Helga gently pulled him into her arms, tucking his face into her chest. "Well," I noted, "at least she's wearing a bra this time." They stood at my door, holding each other tightly. Then their eyes met, and right there in front of my camera, they kissed passionately. Their hands started wandering beneath each other's clothes, and it looked like they were about to do something completely indecent right on my doorstep. I cleared my throat twice and took a breath, then tapped the speak button on the surveillance app. "Need me to bring out a bed for you?" They both jumped. Mason panicked and shoved Helga away so hard she stumbled backward and landed on the ground. He shot a quick glance at the camera, then ran off without even looking back. Helga sat there on the floor holding her butt and crying, then got up and chased after him. What a performance. I uploaded the video to the group chat with the message, "If you love deeply, just make sure not to do it at my doorstep. Otherwise, I'll call the police, and if I have to replace another front door, I'll add that to the damage cost." Neither Mason nor Helga responded, but I knew they saw it. Probably re-watched the clip over and over again. Whatever was going through their heads, I didn't care because the 10th day deadline was almost here and all I cared about was my money. Mason didn't have any money. He claimed to be a gaming streamer, but in reality, it was just a nice way of saying he played games at home all day. He never took it seriously, didn't even have proper equipment, and certainly didn't have any income from it. All those years we were together, I was the one supporting him, thinking he was trying to be a professional gamer. The moment we broke up, I shut down our joint account. And Helga, with her tacky taste and 0 sense of value, probably didn't have much either. So I was curious on how exactly they were going to come up with over $300,000. What I didn't expect was that not only did they come up with it, they had it all in cash. and showed up with a duffel bag, strutting in like heroes. Mason marched up and pulled out the money, ready to throw it in my face. "Isn't this what you wanted, Nalani? Here's your damn money." I caught the cash midair, quickly checked its authenticity. It looked real. I raised an eyebrow in mild surprise. He went to grab another wad, clearly wanting to toss more at me just to vent his anger, but before he could throw it, I yanked the duffel bag out of his hands. "Let's take it to the bank for verification." I didn't give Mason another chance to toss money at me. On the way to the bank, Mason and Helga held hands tightly, glued to each other in the back seat, constantly whispering, cuddling, and kissing. Mason kept sneaking glances at me, trying to gauge if I looked upset or regretful, but my eyes were only on the money on the front seat. I didn't spare them a single look. After confirming the amount was correct and depositing every last dollar, I finally let out a long breath. The nightmare was finally over. Just as I turned to leave, Mason suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist. I frowned in disgust and looked at him. His lips trembled slightly. He struggled to say anything, just when I was about to lose patience. I finally heard him whisper with a shaky voice, "I really did love you." And then he added, "You know you'll never meet another man as good as me." Even now he had the nerve to act like the tragic ex. I didn't know who he was trying to impress with that performance. I pried his sweaty fingers off my wrist, then smiled at both Mason and Helga and said, "I hope not. Why would I want another one like you? Both of you are losers. You deserve each other. May you two have the life you deserve." With that, I deleted them both from my life, packed up my place, listed the condo for sale, and got on another plane to leave the country. After the condo sold, I heard Mason showed up in the middle of the night and somehow got into a fight with the new owner. It escalated all the way to the police station. Mason threatened to harm himself and demanded to see me. The new homeowner reached out to me through the real estate agent, and that's when I learned the full story. The money Mason had given me had been borrowed from various sources. But it wasn't just $320,000. He'd borrowed a total of $500,000. After paying me back, he spent the rest taking Helga on vacation after vacation, shopping spree after shopping spree. They had the time of their lives until the debt collectors came knocking. Mason had no money. He asked Helga to help repay some of it. She initially agreed, then she disappeared. So was Mason's phone, his laptop, and the last few $1,000s he had left. With nowhere else to turn, Mason thought of me. He wanted forgiveness and to come crawling back. But when he came to my old home and saw another man there, he assumed that man was my new boyfriend, and got into a fight. That's how he ended up at the police station. Mason claimed to be my fiancé and demanded to see me. The real estate agent nervously called to ask, "Nalani, he says he has to talk to you. What should we do?" "Ignore him. He is not my fiancé." I said, "I don't know him. If he needs to be charged, let him be charged. If he needs to be fined, let him be fined. He brought this on himself." After I hung up, the agent sent me a video of Mason lying on the ground sobbing uncontrollably. I didn't watch it. I didn't reply. Not my problem. Everything that happened was his own doing. He had no one to blame but himself.